Sanje, Chudan, Soji, Chonama, Chanju Bada, Dali Soji, Chola, Sanje, Sanje, Cholan, Soji, Chonama, Chanju Bada, Daji Chuchenji, Chola, Sanje, Sanje, Cholan, Soji, Chonama, Chanju Bada, Daji Chuchenji, Chola, Sanje, Dayata, Gade, Parasungate, Body, Dayata, Gade, Parasungate, Body, Dayata, Gade, Parasungate, Body, What's the Tamil Tochalana Macheva Sanjay Kumar Mochitin, Tobacha? The age of the judges and the Latin of Sushi, Lawala, simple, Tuba, Tuchisho Mano, Chikotu. Kosovo, the Tamala, Lavich, Sajay, and the Treasure to be substantial.
So, setting our motivation to do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment, and in order to do so, knowing that we must have a knowledge of the Bodhisattva's practices. In order to do that, we must gain an understanding of them based on a non-mistaken presentation. And so, with this in mind, this morning we are here to listen to a brief explanation on the outlines of the stages of the path to enlightenment as composed by the great gentle protector Lama Tsongkhapa.
Takajaji Simjan Tamjik and Sanjay Kuma Matona Chimoda, Chiku, Stato, and the Casota Tajiga Cosoria Tobe, that Tobe, Cheto, and Takajaji, Matona Chigumu, that Toba Chebala, and Jita Simjan Tamjik Sanjay Kuma Toba Chicken, Takajaji Casota. Some of the Kenneth, Jajuga Simta, Chuma Sujaji Kenne, that Kenne Karchibu, and Jovala Laku, Jovala Labete, and that's Chisopaja to Laku, Chisopaja to Namel Lagodu, and the Dakaja Dakas de Teshema shoots and Dachibata, and Sujinta, and Casoria, Sobata, Dakaja Zunduche, and something that's something cut to the lay over it. The name was what is and shut up, what is
So in our motivation and in our prayer, we aspire to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings, and with that understanding too that it's very really necessary to attain the state of enlightenment in order to be able to perfectly benefit sentient beings. And that when we generate this thought, known as bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, we try to move from that which is kind of artificial into something that is a really genuine contemplation on this thought. And once we have that, then we must also then, as it were, engage in the activities that are implied by that motivation, and that means the six perfections, engaging in the six perfections. And so this has been the topic or the subject matter for our teachings, and we have gone through the perfections of generosity, ethics, patience, perseverance, joyous perseverance, and just begun the last two, starting with the perfection of meditative stabilization. And this will be followed by the perfection of wisdom.
That's something we should have done. The subject is the subject. Just because should be much as it was like, but not much as it was. You know, that I did characteristic of the body. That good to go get it. 자도 그렇고 잘았어. 그래. 다 반제 저 그래. 다 반제 때 땡에서 좀 외디 개체 뭐 싶지 않아서 그렇게 쉬차이 봐. 같이 저 쉽지 개체 뭐 차이. 같이나 저 맞아도 단단히 가서다. 가서 이마 쇼는 싫어. 양아 대다 단전 투비 시작 좀 송스다. 같이 저 준준하고 왔다 송한테 조지 아니 저 시작부터 송한테 쓰냐가 집가다 집발라 소매다 같이 저 파진 하마티가 파진 가보티가 저 가르쳐서 시락 기회 되다 총았다. 시락 기회 왔다. 시락 기회 쇼스는 기고요 말고 한다. 기회 왔다 그 규게 뭐부지 라고 튕게 뭐부지 규게 뭐부지 라고 다 되게 되거든. 라고요. 라고요. 왔다 되는 거든지. 다 되네 이번인데 다 아니 땡에 젠디 다 가서도 뭐 시락디 다 같이 저 일단 가라도 미대별 동에 못는 용태 대외 대화때 아니 저 마용에 다 지금 소수 배전 전에 딱다지 남갈 좀 하도에 탑시 노트에 가서는 나라도 시럽 매대 잡으러 와. 시럽 다 시럽들라 가서 군조부터 배 시럽다 돈답에 시럽 지다 시럽 잠다 요때 이내다 양답에 시럽 매고 인자. 그러와 양답에 시럽 제단 교리 개마도 세월 제마도 인자. 세월 제마도 인자. 다 양답에 시럽 세월 제발라 가르고 그러서나 다 같이 최담제게 다 같이 군조배 시럽을 안 줄게 개고 최담제가 돈답에 시럽을 안 줄게 개고 다 군조배 시럽다 돈답에 시럽 새롱아지 야보지 개발라 땡에지면은 용을 못 와. 땡에지 보고도 와. 그래.
So indeed, we have kind of covered many of the outlines relating to the perfection of meditative stabilization, and just to as a reminder as to kind of like the context of the 6 perfections that as we have quoted from the Bodhisattva's Way of Life by Master Shantideva, where he points out that the first 5 are like branch practices in order to really service the 6th wisdom, thereby really highlighting the paramount importance of wisdom. And so in this kind of like capacity, it's not something like wisdom that we can simply pray for, may I develop wisdom. It really requires a very concentrated and a very dynamic approach whereby we isolate and identify all the causes and conditions necessary to cultivate wisdom, and then we set out to train in accomplishing those causes and conditions, and that we are both concentrating on the conventional wisdom and ultimate wisdom in terms of this, so that in order that we perfect, when we bring our wisdom to perfection in both conventional sense and the ultimate sense. And so here it talks about having that understanding of wisdom with regard to all phenomena, both conventionally and ultimately. And so this is what's regarded as the kind of like the pinnacle really of our practice of the 6 perfections. And we can see where meditative concentration is placed as a kind of an essential primary cause to bring about that wisdom, because we may have an inkling of the what is the nature of reality, but to maintain our focus on that, to penetrate into the real meaning, we need the power of meditative stabilization.
The modern education down nangdo ripani kheba de shoku yarda modern education de dendu ge sheyen de ane 지금 퇴중 실업 점 요바이나 근데 이미 제시다 내다 되게 다 하고 와이나 대사가 10회째로 출주고요. 다 낭도 리버스는 대사 말이야. 퇴배 실업 점게 평균이 뭐 퇴중 실업이 계셔 버려. 퇴중 실업이 이 안에 양도 삼도 땅에 제공 제는 삼도 땅에 아니 가서데 삼중 실업 계고 이래. 삼중 실업 계봐서 게 차상화지 농아 말이야. 다디 아니 미버제지도 샤네 검중기 실업 계고 이래. 그래서 퇴상 거서 야마대와 냠설랑아 터네. 와다 되게 숨가도 중간에 아니 문에 심바 승리 차고 이래. 디면은 최종의 시라고 생각해 10에 고치고요 말이에요. 10에 고치고요 말. 어떤 뜻이래?
So when we bring in the topic of meditative stabilization, it really highlights in many ways the difference in approach and emphasis between what's known as a modern education and say Buddhist education. So from the point of view of modern education, it's like we kind of like really concentrate on just the absorption of data into the mind so that it can be reproduced and so on in tests and assignments and so on. It doesn't go often very much farther than that. However, from the Buddhist point of view, of course, the wisdom, as was known as the wisdom arising from study or learning, which corresponds with the kind of like that absorption of the raw data, is important, very important, but it's seen as only the initial step of three steps that must be practiced in combination. So you have the wisdom arising from learning, then that is honed and that is crystallized and that is refined through analysis, giving rise to what's known as the wisdom arising from contemplation. But then one does not even stop at that. Further deepening of that understanding of that analysis is taking place through a single pointed concentration, giving rise to the wisdom arising from meditation. And so too, in being able to practice these three, the wisdom arising from learning, from contemplation, and from wisdom, from meditation, in a kind of sequence, in a combination, is extremely important. And in this way, we can really develop true, unmistaken understanding. So this is like so important to be able to have that window into actual reality. And so once we kind of then steer our attitude, activities, actions, behaviors in accordance with that actual reality, we will be able to establish we will be able to avoid that which does not accord with reality, and therefore avoid the creation of suffering causes that we do not find desirable, and on the other hand we will be able to steer our actions, behaviors towards that which accords with reality and develop the causes of happiness and that which we do desire. Excuse me. And also this can be done in an unmistaken way. So with the modern education approach, you can see too that because it's not as thorough, many mistakes can occur. And so recently I've seen a story on the news where one woman had a breast removed because it was said to be cancerous, but they subsequently found out that it didn't contain cancer at all. And in fact, the breast that wasn't removed was the cancerous one. And so you have this sort of terrible mistakes that are made because of that.
시부지 잡아 용말와 얘네 당 알아서 때도 시부지 약부 지금 요때 얘네 약부 때기나 그 되게가 라바라바에 가는 저 되게 요봐 라바라바에 가는 뭐 노초 용식으로 용식으로 저 앞에나 다다 약부 시부도 니마 약부 도스 다다 약부 민도 라기 요래 다다 약부 시부도 스도 로카시처럼 약부 민도 라기 그 딱가서는 그 딱지 지게인데 그 탐해와 지금 요사 그 탐해가 들 채요 봐
So we can see this play out in kind of like in a constant way through the kind of lack of proper comprehensive analysis into any given situation. And that not only in kind of medical issues where somebody may be from our kind of lay person's point of view seem to be doing quite a thorough analysis. But in fact, it's not so, because they're operating under kind of an ordinary appearance. Those who are kind of confined to interpreting a life or world and their life through ordinary appearance, and there's always kind of limitation in what one can actually truly discern, and indeed also with regard to whether what one discerns is correct or incorrect also. So no wonder mistakes are made, and so you can see this play out in kind of like in many different fields where what was acceptable as being good and proper in the past is now no longer seen to be as good and proper. What was considered to be poor practice in the past is now considered to be the thing to do. And so there's this constant like changing of the goalposts with regard to what is acceptable and unacceptable, what is right and what is not right. And so because this arises from the inability to properly analyze the true nature of things, the reality of things. And yet we can see that but there is an overall improvement, that compared to the situation from the past, things have improved a great deal. And so that this practice of the wisdom arising from learning, the wisdom arising from contemplation, the wisdom arising from meditation, practiced in combination and towards their perfection, is what will give us this unmistaken insight, and sort of like and to be able to be sure that our perception is unmistaken, unconfused, unmixed up, is very important. And so you must begin by being able to establish the unmistaken causes that will give rise to that unmistaken result in our approach and in our practice, and indeed to isolate the mistaken causes and to eradicate those as well along the way.
Yeah, that the name was that the thing is to be the catchable shooter. That thing is to do a catchable in Satu, and the thing is to down the colors to good ass and the tank is Ruata, Shenekobe, and that China to him, which Sango you has and a Gigan Karina Matida, Twinja Karina, Sanga Checo, with the chip.
And so, in this regard, the development of meditative concentration is extremely important, and so we set out to establish how to establish such a meditative stabilization. It clearly requires many both external and internal conditions to be able to properly develop or cultivate such a concentration, including being able to rely on a teacher, to have all the necessary conducive conditions available to you, etc.
现在国民给内地给这么是不成有的，可是我让做这个，可是的定个这了工地村里面跟什么印章，工地村里面这个，俺先把把了呗，修印这个这印章对，俺这个什么应该个建筑做的人家印度的哇，印度的或者内地给这么是不差这个对吧？
The first conducive condition that is highly emphasized is the place. Where will you go to develop meditative stabilization?
当不现在国民给现在给他就没把下当，肯定是或其他这个的，他本来成年长远，俺就那么给看是咱的年个，就落中钱，但落中钱他娘做那也交了，他这个这给把接完了，他俺会听见嘛不唱过了，然后听了呗，那个听见他他妈不唱过了哇，我中国人我听见。
Yeah, so and then this is in the context of also, of course, having a fully qualified instructor to give you the instructions. That those instructions themselves are clear, they're well ordered, they're unmistaken, and then you have all the external conditions that one can rely on to kind of keep one's body healthy and so on, provisions and so on. And in this context, we're talking about then the place. That it is necessary. So in terms of the place, it's always regarded as somewhere which is more isolated, away from the hurly-burly of life, because of the fact that we are very much beginners without any habituation at all towards the concentrated mind state. And that we can see this very clearly without too much convincing, that the moment you try to concentrate on something, you're immediately distracted. And even the tiniest incident can distract the mind completely from what you're meant to be focused on. So this shows that, if you haven't got a place that is free from easy, kind of like ready distractions, then it's going to be very difficult to cultivate this stabilization.
미가지 시그레 가사데 무슨 돈다 내가 이제 돈다 지구요나 돈다 된거 뭐도나 남자 소속이 칸주지에 빼자자고 야가 공다고잖아 돈다 그거 된게도
And so again, I was kind of pointing out that it's such a kind of like how would you say insidious disease, or a sense of distraction that often is the case when we can't remember something. We're trying to recall something and we just can't remember. You're kind of advised that, okay, well, why don't you just do your prayers or do some meditation? As soon as you start your meditation, you remember it. Because you'll be distracted into remembering it. So then, of course, so this shows that the mind is so fickle, so flighty, that we have to be aware of that from the outset, and then choose a place where we can be less distracted in that sense. Then the next major consideration that one must take into consideration is our own health, our own body health. And again, it shows that the body is frail, the body is fragile, so we must have access to good food, good water, and a good place to kind of good provisions in order to keep ourselves healthy and fit. And so, of course, you can see in some places too, like one can be very prone to illness, whereas in other places one can remain quite fit and healthy. So that sort of a choice needs to be made wisely as well. And then, of course, having access to easy provisions in terms of water, in terms of food, and all the necessary conditions, because, of course, we have a coarse body. And that needs to be looked after, that needs to be cared for in the purpose of developing this meditative stabilization.
And
that whatever we gather in terms of provisions and so on, we must be careful that it is done in accordance with Dharma principles as well. So we have to be careful in that way. That is ethically procured. So the place as well, of course, is so that if it is in an area where others are, that we are able in harmony with those others, that they are not an object of that will give rise to attachment, give rise to ignorance, give rise to anger, so on. So in other words, that whatever place we choose, it should be very convenient to avoid any distraction or any generation of mental affliction. And of course, just pointing out, if you're in the wild and you have wild animals around, then you're unlikely to develop attachment or anger in that sense. But it would be better if you didn't have tigers and lions around. That might be a danger to you as well. So you have to kind of consider that.
yana chato yana sheda yana ngaje la so tende tenja ji ana khatang te ta ji je de ga zang zhe ne ana dang mi de du jia me ne ga zang se mi de ge 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 de xian de shu jin ga zang se de xian hua de zhuo guo kan jiang duo dang gu yin ji you de duo de you de duo de ne za ge zhe mo de duo sa zhe ge zhe mo duo da yin de gong jiang de yin de yin.
So of course also you must guard against any possible danger to your engaging in Dharma, and that in terms that means that those who are perhaps meditating with you or beside you, or those who are coming to your aid, providing provision and so on, that must be looked into very carefully. So whether they are meditating or not, that they need to be those who are very cognizant of what you're trying to do and very much in support of what you're trying to do, so not in any way to contribute to your mental afflictions or to engage in talk that is distracting, giving rise to jealousy or pride or any kind of anger, attachment and so on. And so one must be aware of that, and so to also consider that perhaps at the outset, when you choose somebody to help you in that sense, that they may not be like that, that they will be very much in focus and on task, as it were, in supporting you. But over time, through talk and chat and so on, when they come to visit, that your mind will be more and more distracted, and it will be counter to your purpose of remaining in meditation.
다치 계계 안다도 메다 추다 소게 내가 메되게 아니 고마라 소게 내가 메되게 아니 다 제sel라서 되게 쉬는 시고 다되는 내되게 대신에 아니 대야 미모부 지금 빼다 공장에 미모부 야도마도 제네다 대뭐 영한테 여배이나야 고 빠지 제대로 와 고세 제대로 어디 좀 매게 아니 좀 이제 그거 다야 소점에 섬서 좀 제대 섬서 게임랑제 첩랑제 와다데 와다데 데 매버체 뺐다 반제 지금 사자 가서 데 그 빠지 샤와도 마도지 우로 데 게게 매버체.
And so that so a very quiet place that is not in danger of fire, or flood, that or wild animals, as was mentioned before, or of thieves coming. That are not a place which is busy in any way, with people coming back and forth all the time, and causing distraction in that way, and creating anywhere where really is free of obstacles as much as possible to exactly what you're trying to achieve. And also not in a place where you're going to have parties next door, people joking, dancing, laughing, singing, and so on. So to be able to choose a place that is really quiet and safe.
아니 다가니 다 되게 튕게 되게 찾아 좀 찾았다 랑게 르기 대다다는 르 남당의 최된 대세지 남반나서의 수단 최된 된 맞은 거죠 다 주나 간투도 다 뒤마존에 또 주나 다 뒤가서 르나나가 최된 다 같이 도지 진동체 어떻게 했다 약간 저 수부도 강해를 요가 이마이나 수비 내가 딱이 되잖아 가져다 개치주도 미바데 때문에 이게 개치주로 와
then once one has established the place, one is happy with the place, then one establishes one's posture for meditation, and as much as possible to try and conform with the 7-point Vairocana posture for meditative concentration, but one must adhere to what is comfortable for one's body, whilst maintaining always a very straight back. But if one can adopt the full Vajra posture or the semi-Vajra posture, that's very good to begin with, and to maintain that particular body posture in facilitating concentration, and to kind of check one's body to see that it's most important that one is at least comfortable in the position one has taken.
다 근데 저 다들 대도에는 소속을 르기 되고 다야래 개발고 산제 남반 남자 쓰는데다 여와 링안에 아니 르기 뒤마다베 딱자 하차와 차대도 르기 뒤마다야래 개발고 요래.
So the symbolism of the Vairocana posture is related to the Buddha Vairocana. Being symbolic of the purification of all physical negativities and stains. And so when we adopt that meditative posture, it is also that which is facilitating the purification of physical negativities and obscurations and so on as well.
안 체크 좀 체. 아니 되나 아니 또 다디 중사도 아니 라바다 가서তে 요월이 예 칼션인 비슷해. 이제 자로 많이 받잖아. 야 뭐도 뭐 이제 저 just industry. 아니 대요 와스트 많이 조치스 와트 이제. 아니 뒤쪽 자로 많이 받잖아. 뒤쪽 대대셔. 어떤지.
And so the posture is to adopt the full Vajra posture with the crossed legs. Excuse me. Or the semi-Vajra posture, if that's more comfortable. Then with the hands, the left hand on the bottom, right hand on the top, with the thumbs just touching, not pressed close together or not apart, but just resting together, and that combination of hands is held just below the navel, which should bring out the elbows and arms that are not pressed close to the body, but slightly out to allow air to pass between them and the body. And so he says also when the arms are in like that, it can lead to sleep, which is a danger. And so that also it keeps the body slightly cool because the air is passing through, and that keeps you awake. And then the most important, the spine is straight, very straight as possible. So you do your best to do that. So if it's not possible, if kind of like physical, your makeup is so that it's slightly bent, then there's not much you can do about it. But as much as possible to try and maintain a straight back, straight spine.
이네 다 소소 매바 이제 뭐네 어떻게 대규 요삼을 야보이 그래. 이제 뭐는 도지 기tum체 인터체 매바 이제 뭐네 대규 요삼 사잖아.
And so that to whatever extent one cannot emulate the kind of like ideal posture, and nevertheless that in our minds we actually visualize and imagine that we are in the exact Vairocana posture with the full Vajra posture with the legs and so on as well. That's quite good.
그래서 그 네 가지 차도 와. 상제 넘버 나서 대단 투바 대대 소소 류기만 답에 딱잘 하차와 이번 하차와 넘버 나서 소소 마음 바로 소소 류기만 답에 딱잘 아니 야 넘버 나서 차이가 와. 넘버 나서 차보다 되게 주토에 개와 있고 와.
So this is also to facilitate the establishment of the causes to actually in the future arise as Buddha Vairocana, because you're emulating the Buddha of the purified physical aspect, and by doing so this is creating the causes to achieve that result.
넘버 나서는 찍어도 매번 넘버 나서 타요 봐요. 심지어 탐자 산제도 심지어 수임은 대레레게 류기만 답에 딱잘 하차예요. 넘버 나서 뭘 찾고.
And so also not to consider that there's only one kind of Vairocana, that there's limitless Vairocanas, because of course in order to attain the state of enlightenment one must purify all the negativities and stains of the body, of the physical aspect anyway. And so one passes like through one becomes the Vairocana of that aspect on the way to, well, as one is a Buddha.
제레스에 다가래. 그러나 말아서 제레스에서 왔다 돼. 제레스에 장래 돼 봐요. 그렇죠? 제레스 장 돼 봐. 가서는 심제 레레 상계원도 아니 디 투주기 아니 가서도 인지 전부 하차에 투주기. 그러다 가서 인지 하차에 제레스 투도 하차에 창하도지 실업 하차에 잡배양. 아니 근데 다다지 미나나 제라서 어떻게 될 하차도 그 레레레 차토요. 어떻게 그 류질 강사지랑 한번 붙여야 되는데 좋아. 한번 붙여도 다 상계에서는 다 되는 차도고 와.
And so, of course, in that respect too, when we think of Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezig, the Buddha of compassion, there are countless Chenrezigs. It's not just the one representation that we see in statues and so on, and that because the Buddha Chenrezig is the kind of symbolic or symbolism of the great compassion that arises for all sentient beings. Just as Vajrapani represents the great power, capacity, and of the Manjushri, representative of the great wisdom. And so, in fact, when we talk in terms of the Buddha's body, we can say that every part and every pore of the Buddha's body is can be representative of or symbolic of a different Buddha aspect in that sense. And this is only logical in terms of a being, an enlightened being working for the benefit of all sentient beings, then is able to speak to all the different types of beings through these different aspects or different representations of enlightenment. And so this is why it's considered to be, quite an important part, that to the degree to which we can adopt the full perfect Vairocana posture, that's good. Then what in our minds or in our imagination, we actually visualize that we are in the perfect Vairocana posture when we are meditating, in order to establish these causes. And so that And so, quite apart from the great yoga, which is very pervasive in the West now, where it's kind of like they adopt this posture of like the hands at the end of the knees when they meditate. Rather than that, you choose the Buddhist meditation posture with as the hands, as Genla has demonstrated, because this is it's a very important point of being able to lay down the causes, to be able to bring about not just the Vairocana body, but also to render our own body and mind supple, and bring about that mental and physical pliancy, which is of course creating a body which is perfect for tantric practice as well. And it's also kind of like being able to access the subtle winds and channels and drops and so on to the inner heat of Tomo and meditations like that. So this is all very conducive towards this Vairocana posture, towards being able to cultivate those practices.
다 단단히 또 뭐다 저렇게 저렇게 시하고 맞다 이네다 이네야 되게들 개발주가 단단히 거 자티 소리 주면나 그 단단히 자티 소리 잖아 그때 대 공시차 난 딜라데는 랑기 루이티 레스로 하자 루이레스로 하지도 루이들에 내가 자다 롱다 되게 대래 그 레스로 또 스페도 연구로 와 안디 중에나 어느 소소문에 전에 그 가서라다 지금 지난 투모에 땡게지 두바 좀 많이 봐 남배 투모 많이 뱉는지 남배 투모 많이 뱉는지 좀 상하게 투모 많이 뱉 새 토벽에는 땡게지 남의 제도라고 거기 대화지 창고로 와 대화지 창고로 와 대화 단단히 소마도나 제가 양직 제도야 제도 또 자스 부여래 단단히 그 대화를 쏘는 거 거기 레라고 나도 쪽으로 와
Of course, we're not talking about entering into practices like the inner heat Tomo now. This is not for now. Now we're talking about establishing a meditative concentration, and this requires a certain kind of preparation of the positioning of the body and the different parts of the body, as has been explained, in order to bring about this physical and mental pliancy. That is very, very important in order to access to the higher states beyond the instructions on meditative concentration that are common to both Buddhism and some non-Buddhist schools, but to be able to access the higher states of mind and realizations, etc. Of course, this is going to be difficult at the outset, but it is that which becomes easier with practice.
대대도 그런 거죠. 루그 최대한 대들려 또 스팽기 대대뱅기 대대뱅기 다 대자 많이 받자 딱 말아서 제가 지금 가서는 자로 틀리냐면 지레 대대뱅고라 좀 류종나 자종이나 롱종부이나 거다 거지 그 샘뒤에들라 롱온도 좀 아주 쳐봐시고 차고요 봐. 당 아주 다다 샘 듀마지야 저에 가서 롱온도 듀마도 연구를 와. 롱디 샘 슈바르 따르다 봐. 롱 쇼트도 안 샘데 쇼트고요 봐. 안 자종부지 류종부지도 자종부지도 자디나 레벨 롱디게도 종부차. 안 디저도 거샘 뒤에 켜봐 좀 거죠. 켜봐 요 그래. 근데 저 최대한 데 켜봐 요 그래.
And the establishment of the very straight spinal column is again emphasized here, and this of course has been shown now also, I think, to be a benefit to one's physical health, to maintain that sort of posture. In the context of meditation here, we are talking about being able to maintain that straight spine in order to facilitate the development of meditative concentration. And this is done through also being able to accommodate the channels and the winds. And so saying that once one, like through straightening the spine, one facilitates the straightening of those channels. And that once the channels are straightened, then the winds can move through the channels unobstructed and smoothly. And this is extremely important in terms of bringing, pacifying the mind and facilitating the concentration. And so saying that the often the kind of distraction is preceded by an agitation of the winds within the body. And so this leads to obviously then distraction from what one's focus is and counteracts the job of developing meditative stabilization. So by being able to maintain straight spine, one facilitates the straightening of the channels, that in other words then facilitates the movement flow of the winds, and that in turn helps for the pacification of the mind, and a mind that is focused, free of distraction.
So 제단의 뒤균에는 구구 전도인데 간자도 구구 차주도. 그게 전에 거 개발 때려서. 얘기 진짜 많거든요. 자갈 안디 치카서는 안디 그다는 얘기 아마 비자 좀 왔다 비자 달로 개주자랑 국제 사마스문제 베이징 뭐란 게 사다죠 봐. 사다 이제 구구 전도 진짜. 수고도 어서 담보도 구구 전 가서는 로 충종 가라다 내가 먹볼래 안 잘라 먹볼게. 가래 잔도도 다 이제 구구 전. 다 구구 되는 좀 똥바 있는 구구 되는 좀. 다 잘라 충종 잡을 캐나 또 똑똑시 캐나 또 개를 걷어. 잘라면 구구 참. 그 당번에 그 내가리도 구구 제 직접 그 지금 총구 맞으는데 딱 그 뒤자도 돌아두고 있어 왔니 이제. 이제 또
Again, I'm saying that if one it tends to kind of like have a bent spine, a kind of stoop or like that will worsen over time too. One will kind of have that stooped appearance, bent over. And Carl again was recalling a relative of his, a distant relative of his mother in the area of Mungat in India, who was when he knew him in the 90s, he was really bent over, and largely because of having done a lot of labouring and a lot of carrying of heavy materials when very young, kind of bent the spine in that direction. But it was a kind of an extraordinary sort of result of that. That if he wasn't carrying anything, he would be quite really bent over, facing the ground. But if you actually gave him something to carry, he actually straightened up. So kind of a latent memory of the body.
이나가이 맞다도 단다도 그래서 제가 잘 먼저 이나다 상해에 지난 너무 궁금하잖아요. 개발된 요소와 안디가 나다다도 경제들의 충족장 말이에요. 경제 처벌에 가서 자다 롱 통보 되길래 류 통보잖아. 자 통보잖아. 롱 통보자 들을 때는 거기 자지 가서도 지금 아니 지금 다 간자 지금 가서도 다 사마기 냠내 시우들이 제일 열받아. 어떤 내가 차대고 열와. 내가 차대고 또 처벌도 충족 좀 말이에요. 안 들을 때는 수술을 볼래 개발도 와.
And so, of course, this is not in any way directly related to developing meditative stabilization. The main point, the key point of maintaining the straight spinal column, is to facilitate the movement of the establishment of the channels and the movement of the winds through the channels. That helps to bring about meditative stabilization. And that the kind of side effect of helping you physically is a side effect. It's a good thing too, but not the main point.
그 몸이 님바던데 몸이 경과던데 수고 통보도 와. 거기서 가서 거기 몸이 들려잖아 지금도 와. 그래서 거기 개발된데도 와. 통보도 와. 너 경과 있네들도 와.
You see too, maybe old soldiers. They often are still very bolt upright, because they've been having to stand at attention all their lives, and so even though they're very old, they still are very erect like that.
다시 와 뿡바니, 다 뿡바니 때, 다 총보되는 뿡바되는 때와 말이죠. 뿡바니 때 파. 진짜 가서도 뭐
Then with regard to the physical posture, continuing on, the shoulders should be level. So you're not kind of sliding one way or the other. The shoulders are level. So, and then with the eyes not to be wide open nor closed, but sort of hooded, where some light can get through. But held in a natural position too. You don't sort of like force the eyes into a particular position. And again, I was talking about, and there are exceptions to this, where you often see very well established practitioners, quite realized practitioners who can sit with eyes wide open, but they're not seeing anything externally because they have developed their meditative stabilization to such an extent that they've really closed or dissolved really the reactions to the senses completely, and they're living an internal kind of a concentration, even though the eyes are wide open. But from our, as beginners, it's probably better not to begin like that. Because the point is that you don't want anything to pay attention to, and that the eyes can bring that about, can't they? And so it's better, because once you start paying attention to something, then you're going to be distracted from your object. And so that's why it's recommended that the eyes are kind of like hooded or not fully open. And the focus is kind of like at a kind of a nondescript point beyond the tip of the nose. So this is important, that you're not concentrating on the tip of your nose. That's just that that's the way the gaze is directed towards that point in the distance. So you're not looking at your nose. You're just using it as a directive direction. So for people from Asia, that may not be such a problem. But Westerners with big noses could be a distraction. I'm only joking. And then with the mouth, both the lips and the teeth are to be left in a kind of relaxed, natural position. The only distinction then is that the tongue is tipped to the roof of the mouth and kept there to prevent water and phlegm gathering in the mouth. So the this is the recommended posture, the different points of that posture, and that even though now we have no kind of habit of actually sitting like that, we should do our best to adopt this posture as accurately as we can, and that even to do our best over a short time to sit in that posture is very good. Then if you find it difficult, which you will, then to kind of like visualize and imagine that you are sitting perfectly still in that position, even though you may have adjusted because of pain and so on. So because of course you sustain in your mind the important fact that by maintaining this position, one is purifying obscurations of the body, physical obscurations, as well as laying down imprints to be able to arise as Buddha Vairocana in the future. But because we have no habituation to it, that's going to be difficult. But again, to bear in mind that nothing does not become easier through habituation. So when we habituate, that early difficulty will dissipate and will become easier for us to sit in that way. So again, saying, look at the Olympic athletes, when they're doing, say, the gymnastics and so on, incredible, like their bodies, like rubber, they're able to twist and turn like that, and that doesn't happen without a lot of training, a lot of habituation. But of course, that's not our goal. We don't want. We're not intending to go to the Olympics, but we do want to develop the meditative concentration.
mikten kari ne tigu yore, pene shingi ne do ine re, ane tigu me do ine re, ta kari ne tigu yore te, ine ya, nga ranzo tigu sem tu ta tang, ane sanje yu kumba tuye ke tapshi yin tu, ane ta tigu tapshi la tuji chimbo to, tomba shanje tuba set tabi ina, ta yakshu chate ro, nga ranzo tata ti le tangbo kapshi shende tuku yon tu, wa dunbe yu ten tu tene chi che tu, ane tigu tsirab tsirab wada dunbe je su sunga yata, tene kiawa mungu yu kuruwa, ruwa, no so debate ichi yosa and jitu and jikaso the debe yode to the chembe kone and sem ta de neta chiech yogurwa what the chat the debe ku inji mi ji ko yake marta yoba ina ko jikal kaza da tanga ineta debe kura shagyo imbeta ka ramne yuke chi wa what the chat.
So this then completes the instructions relating to how one should physically sit to establish meditative stabilization. The next topic discusses what one should focus on, the object one should focus on. And indeed it says in many of the manuals when it talks about developing meditative stabilization, it said really anything works. One can choose an item made of wood or stone or flowers as possible, but it's recommended from the Buddhist point of view in order to not just establish meditative stabilization, but also to establish imprints in the mind to attain the state of enlightenment, and to pacify one's mind. It's good to choose an image of Shakyamuni Buddha. And that can be a statue, that can be a tanka, that can be another representation, that it's and to kind of from our point of view recalling the good qualities of Shakyamuni Buddha, of an enlightened being, and bringing to that whatever faith and conviction and that we have is very, very good, and that the object that we choose is also consecrated is very good. So a photograph, a tanka, all of these are okay.
거리네 지금. 이내야 미대 샤베 칼라 당가 는 친구 주변에 어디 친구라서 뭐 다이 봐. 그래서 당가 되게 상계 좀 되고 근데 지금 랑을 놀라 차례 제대로 와. 놀라 차례 제대로 와. 당가니 친구 삼도 다 이렇게 말 봐. 그다음 이내요. 거기 칼라 미대데 또 막가 충중치. 중나다 배 충중치. 충중 다들 맞죠 거 맞을 때 내가 아니 딜에 쳐 맞추겠지. 미대.
So it said that also that whatever we choose as our object, say a tanka, for example, that we don't visualize it as something like the huge, like the size of the actual size, but because it is that which is to be visualized within the mind, that which arises in the mind, appears in the mind. It said it's best to visualize it as small as possible, and that if we can't visualize it very, very tiny, then just the size of a thumb is recommended.
당분에 첨부지 삼로 당한테 딜 첨부들 어스 때문에 충동 삼로도 대마도 치로 그러와 대마도 치로다 이나 거기서 쌤지 그 니와 찔러 찍고 다 개치유도 딜에 다 가서 쌤다나 이제 스토데가 요와 슈고요 말와 녀몽 졸았다 배슉 첨부 요다 이나 야가 졸아 슉 매도 다 가서 딜 도사 찔러 야고로 근데 그래 다 오스트레일리아는 내디 디자 통과서 가서 로한데 통과서 자가 로한데 요르베 히말라야를 줄 로한 추추추 첨부된다 로한 요르와 로한스는 헤터 electric heater electric log 아니 추추추는 추티잖아 아니 이게 슉 당겨도 와 아니 이게 이제도 꼬라잡도 미신도 꼬라잡도 와 로한데도 와 로한데다 그것도 별로 다데 많이 라고 많이 저거 되려다 삼바타야다 됐더라 주도 그 추아질라도 그 슉슉 와 근데 그 거라 잡대 거라 잡대 거라 똑같이 어디 당시잖아 가서 먼저 로 이제 자연 대디게 신경 지지는 그게 내가 지가 딱딱 잡투에 시작을 해 내가 지가 딱딱 샤투에 근데 그래서 중앙이네 그 누가 야가였어요.
So I said that the size element that has been emphasized here is to facilitate a more intense focus that one can attain with one's attention, because the natural way of attention is very lax and is kind of like is spread out, so that there's no particular power or force to one's attention, and of course that facilitates distraction also. And so here the point is that we want to channel the full potential, a full power of the mind, and instead to bring it into a narrow channel. The image is used of water, and again is describing the water that kind of turns a millstone, for example, that he hasn't seen much in Australia, but in the Himalayas it's quite common with the streams gushing down, and that the water is channeled into a mill to grind the barley into tsampa and so on. And often it's also used to turn mani wheels, the water like that, so that automatic creation of virtue. And but the point is that when the water is channeled into a narrow channel, it moves much faster and therefore with much more force. And can penetrate, and so here the image related to the mind's force, when we channel it into a small image, as small as possible, that we kind of harness that extra force by channeling onto a small image. There's also a thing saying that if we start with a large image as our object, and then later it's going to be very difficult to focus it down into a small image. So it's best to begin with that which is small, a small image arising in our mind.
그나 drop 틱레 디발 삼로당에 틱레 지가라 아니 때다 때에 지고 용조 삼로당에 들 연구여 봐. 봐. 때다 때에 아니 긴고한테 하다 때 차장자 삼로당이지. 그러나 상가디바이나 상가디베가 하숨주 손이 차장지 drop 지가 틱레 지가 미파 때네. 삼로당에다 연구여 봐. 어떤데 가제 왔다 뒤뒤 아니 당분에 충조지가 공부하려나 왔다 뒤서 뭐 봐도 내가 요건지 지고 내가 두고요 봐.
So, in the tantric instructions, it describes the tantric meditator who visualizes within a kind of like a drop at the very beginning or the very head of the central channel, that is within which that practitioner is able to visualize an entire tantric mandala with all the deities and the main deity and all the other deities, etc., in full regalia, all their different accoutrements, etc., in perfect detail in that tiny drop. So it's once able to do that, then it's kind of it shows the full kind of power of the mind. And we can see too that the instruction to visualize as small as possible here at the beginning is also facilitating, of course, the ultimate practice of being able to practice that highest yoga tantric practice in order to access enlightenment itself.
rangi lola anu sangye ki anu kuti chawa dagarang semshaji chawa dagarang semshaji chawa dagarang semshaji no pige tade mo mi ge tade ga so sam da ai mere ti cheba ina single point meditation chalu yo mari ko sangye khona rangi lola chawa dagarang semshaji ri no sem kaya da yo mari.
So it's often recommended, yes, to use an image of Shakyamuni Buddha, but of course one can, if one has a certain affinity for Manjushri or Maitreya or other aspects of the Buddha, then one can choose an image like that as well. The main point about that is that one must not focus on an image external image, like we say we have a picture of Tanka or a Buddha out there, and then I'm focusing on that. That is not what is recommended here. What is recommended is that one is able to give rise to that image in one's own mind. So it's an internal focus on the mind. That if one maintains like the idea that is a Buddha out there that I'm focusing on, there's no way to develop single-pointed concentration. That one must have that as something arising within in one's in mind, and place one's attention on that. So it's not like this is to kind of again avoid that we're looking at something with our eyes. It's not a sensual experience. This is a mental image that we're giving rise.
옹셰다 아니 저기 나셰다 다 제셰다 된줄라 촌 도나 맞게 맞잖아. 된주 시장화도 마땅 왔잖아. 된주 시장화도 마땅 왔잖아.
Because in the context of developing meditative concentration, we are really trying to avoid anything to do with the physical senses, the eye sense, conscious, the nose, the ear, and so on. Any sensations arising from the senses that we want to really ignore completely.
삼로때 다 상계 좀 되다 내부 쇼지배 this and the letter and what the some dungeon and the Kansas the Takaja and the Sanjaki and Kusuti Rangi in what Chawajan, Chawa the Kansem Shashat, what Chawa Sem Shashat, and can't do it because of the Ombi Shebeke, Shawan Matu Tapshi Church.
So that that our attention, that moment of focus of attention, is prefaced by being able to just contemplate briefly the remarkable qualities of the Buddha that we are choosing as our object, the wonderful qualities of Buddha's knowledge, of power, of love, and to really gain an appreciation for them, and then to bring that image to mind and allow it to arise in the mind, and then place our attention internally on that image, with completely avoiding any attention to the sensations coming in from the senses, and to kind of also consider how wonderful it would be to really emulate these qualities and to become a Buddha oneself.
And the Dingela and the Madagana and Longjon Chigina, and the Sosuki Chikaso, the same thing they got at what they get in Naguta, Yenema, Yenea, Long Tejoda, Guze Chaya, Yenete, Yenema, Tangja, what it is, and two Tembacalanas, Chojo Sanja, Jalisco, Kusudu Chilla, Tangera, that sort of Jus Samsan, and a Rangi, and a Chikas of Namdo Nieba, and a Chig. And the Jaja control us on the Namto Yabalasova, the Hanising and Denneting Mipojola and the part of Jigata, get condition what none doing just some subject. And Suji tell them and the Sagi Jum de down, Chuja Sangit and the Kusun to the Tam Jumata, Jeres, because the thing is to make and make your time to never chasu something. What the long John did this. That did a cool stamp, then a cool stamp, too late to the jet, and the Winigane, too late, Yapakanema, Matanje, what did the goods jet, Lunkutus, what did the Namnaja, some doors, Dingy the Lagat in the Chigwater, that's some good fighting to get part, doing Chimas was jet.
Yea, on the go. Some matter about they go.
That's also Duzula, Yinata, get you the 70 Castle Rang Gom Jan, less one check to not take it. And less one check in Jimmy Lungo Chihuahua, Mariwa. That in a Tangarazo, Yella del Legacia, Rekation, me 2 years, what takes the done, how to take your one. Uncle Lungo Chigina. So the Casa the Casol, Gom Jayagi, and such a Tombas of Suicide. Even the such a much dead. But I think a top cover in Subudo, so there's a color, Misha much dead, they do not meet the pop big with the good on the Tarishoa. There's oh, because it do say that. I mean, oh, come on to pick up the Lamjasuma dash as such. What I didn't say, and so some low dogs. Namdonia but together go on the source. Teacher and round teacher, and then I only for a subside.
And so that as like a short preliminary to this is the actual kind of rendering of one's mind ready to focus on the object chosen. And so this involves the kind of 9-round breathing technique, and depending on the time, one can do the 3 rounds of 9 or the 3 rounds of 3 making 9. So it involves breathing in through, for example, the right nostril of the nose, and as one is breathing in, one is visualized that one is actually taking in all the blessings of the Buddha's body, speech and mind, all that will facilitate the cultivation of meditative stabilization. And then as one breathes out, one is breathing out all the obstacles to development of meditative stabilization, including one's of course, mental afflictions, but also the propensity for distraction, most of all, and to really feel that one is kind of really preparing one's mind for the job of placement meditation by doing this kind of cleaning up one's mind in a way. And so one repeats that, breathing in through the right, out through the left, in through the right, out through the left in the same way, and can repeat that like 9 times. And then one can breathe in through both nostrils at the same time and with the same visualization, and breathing in the blessings and breathing out any obstacles or obscurations to being able to really get into this practice and perfect it. Anything that stands in the way of developing meditative stabilization. And so again, I point out that it can be like compared to like almost like playing a trick on your own mind. That it's related to a kind of a seat that you want to sit on, but somebody else is already sitting on it, and that you may ask them to move, but they are not interested. But then if you say, hey, there's a really interesting kind of thing happening over there, and they kind of go, oh really? And they get up and check it out, and immediately they get up, you sit on their seat, and so you've got all the stuff in your mind that you've been doing from all the work and whatever else you've been getting into, and it's not like you can sit down and get into the actual meditative stabilization practice immediately just like that. And so this 9-round breathing technique is a bit of a trick to kind of go settling the mind away out of the busyness of your normal life, and say, now we're into the zone of on the seat of a meditative stabilization, and distraction has been distracted off it.
먼저 검자도 어떻게 검천의 용어만도 세게 먹고도 맞아 내가 당고 간갈 당하려면 당번에 검정한테 그 습관 요 말과 딱그 딜레이 있고 검네 그 야다 줘야죠 또 그 당번에 그 용해서 말과 안돼서 그 아니 검은 뇌 가는 뇌고도 대 하고 맞지 되게 좀 물어와 검 대도 뭐든 또 나마 맞지 되네 많이 빠져 뇌 가는 뇌고도서 다 말서 가리 샘징에 그랬을 것도 안티 이모이 뭐 그랬어 고고도 뒤에 탑 켜가지고 소고고도면 빼 우도 잡에게만 하고 탑 켜봐 도다도 투바치는 또 보여지려도 와 근데 이제 전에 담보 니가 수바시고 셈에 굴리고 와 셈에 탑고스.
And so that so then we begin the meditation, and of course at the outset, because we are beginners, they will kind of appear that this meditation business is kind of really impossible. But it's simply something that we are completely unhabituated to. It's raw. We're very raw. But once we begin to gain some habituation, you will see some refinement and see the sense in it, and that to also become aware of that which is counteractive to meditative stabilization is very important, and to also understand what sort of approach I should take when those kind of obstacles arise. And it's recommended not to have a kind of a forceful attitude towards them, but more cultivate a skillful response is very, very important. And in this way one proceeds through the different stages, stage 1, 2, 3 and so on, of meditative refinement.
What is it? And it's down to the 땡에지 그 표현다 땡에지 뭐건데 니미도 양내 양도 삼도 땅에 아니 땡에지 주위로 조합해 통 되게디 직접 아니 강도도게 아니 검자에 지체 검자에 가라 샘징디 하고 대고 짐스도 아니 지가 샘딩내 즉 깔래자 샘딩데 hö부에 제시 맞지 고도 와 hö부에 제시 따디 맞아야 롱바에 롱용에 있는 거요 아니 수불에 맞대바 대부매바 차이가 요래 대부매바 차이가 요래 가서나 뭐저디 가서도 르셈 레스로가 멤버 인사 르셈 레스로가 차원도 아니 강해요 말이야 르셈 레스로가 맞아 관들라 강해 뒤어 되게 요래 봐.
So and then when we engage in as we are like in kind of like the process of developing meditative stabilization. And between sessions, it's very important to constantly remind ourselves of the benefits of meditative stabilization and the faults of not developing meditative stabilization as well. And so, to also being able to set the mind in the correct with the correct tension, as it were, at the outset is very, very important. Too, that we're not too tight in trying to force concentration or force attention, as that can lead to kind of like a disturbance of the winds in the body, giving rise to what's known as lung, and that can create major problems for the body, creating a sense of continuous unease and so on physically. That's why they say that, you know, what the teachings on developing mental and physical pliancy are important, and that because once one has, the more mental and physical pliancy one has, the less problems one has in that regard. So it's important to maintain, yes, a disciplined attention, but one at the same time is kind of relaxed. That's quite important. And so you have like this, on the one hand, like deep in the mind, this sort of like almost profound sense of relaxation, of being relaxed and open. And then in terms of the focus of the mind, and that is in relation to its object, as stable as possible, as maintaining that stability.
There's the same thing. The back kana, chola, chenza so what happened thing in it samotane, and so thing as a Google Chuma, the what care was somebody. That's the Tabia Sanja Kumala Tobala, and was the Rotaka thing as a Mabana Yong Dapchon, thing as a tap, but a lamb Kadish gave in a thing as she take away your head. Near joining a judge of young Tawa condition by that, then as a Mavana got chats of a bit of a child. That is what the letter of your letters on it. Not the letter to come here, Google to one, but there was somebody such a tornado, to catch a Josh connection. What did you can't do sometimes get you in over the ship. And so that sort of mind, the deep, peaceful mind or deep, relaxed mind state can also be nourished by the positive reflections on how fortunate we are to have this opportunity to cultivate meditative stabilization. And we see how central it is in being able to bring about like the perfection of our love, the compassion, and all the other qualities. That it is so important, and that I have this opportunity, it brings me great joy, and that we kind of like have this sense of great sense of a positive outlook in bringing us, going through the effort of developing this concentration. So the first stage, or the first state of 9 mental states related to the development of meditative stabilization or mental quiescence is known as fixing the mind or directed attention. So that this is for, like, obviously the first stage, the very beginning stage, and also it's for a really rank
beginners, that we're just about able to focus on the object that we have chosen, but we can't maintain our attention for very long. It's constant, kind of like far more distraction than attention. And we might get the impression that oh gosh, this is a lot more distraction now than before I even started meditating. So it's meditation that's causing all this distraction. No, it's only that you've started paying attention now. You've only noticed for the first time how distracted you are, and so that's the way it is. So it's not that you got more mental proliferation, it's just that you've noticed for the first time how much mental proliferation you have. So the second state is referred to as continuous attention, and this is really just a natural progression from developing the habit of placing the mind again and again and again and again and again on the object after it gets distracted. And so you can see slowly you begin to develop a little more time where you can actually focus on the object without distraction. And so this is only a kind of natural development from habituation. So here you begin to notice that like before you could only stay for maybe a few seconds on the object, but now you've maybe extended it to maybe a minute, maybe up to a minute, that you can actually honestly say that you kind of like focus on the object. Somebody. So, and the third state is known as patchy fixation or resurgent attention. And again, it's a natural progression from two. Now you can actually start to have real solid patches of attention where you are honestly focused on the object. So yes, you get this kind of more like almost stages where you feel that yes, this is you really are fixed on the object, and that there's a recognizable improvement on the stage 2, and that you can have this kind of more determined as well, resurgent attention. So the fourth state is known as close attention, and this then, as it's named, it infers that we have a more close focus on our object, and this largely comes about through now the development of the factor of mindfulness, and so we are mindful of what we're meant to be focused on, and that then facilitates that focus.
정화 개념이가 있어. 보다 뒤에는 지외원도 존이 요산자 요장 다 대대 시신게 잘했다. 정화도 두고 정화를 두고도 두고도 잘했지. 내가 다들 되게 시바들도 다 좋고.
So prior to this, the main object or the main problem for us in developing concentration has been agitation, which leads to distraction, an agitated sense of mind, and this is where the mindfulness is so effective in state 4, where it can counteract that agitation, reduce the instance and the intensity of it. Here at stage 5, which is known as tamed attention, and so here we become more disciplined with regard to agitation, but because of that we may overcompensate and allow in what's known as laxity. That's another major problem, and here we employ the factor of alertness to be on the lookout for laxity, and when laxity arises in our attention. So here the alertness has the function of really checking for any lowering of the mind, which is known as the laxity, a lowering of the intensity of the focus, and saying that the counteracting force here is to recall the qualities of meditative concentration, developing meditative concentration, bring those positive qualities to mind. So the alertness here acts as a kind of like a spy looking from one corner of the mind, which is at the same time as you're actually focused on the object, is checking to see how the intensity of focus is maintained, and especially looking out for any laxity. And so the so then we have the pacified attention, which is state 6. And so here again, it's the main factor at work is the mind of alertness, and so from the state 5, it has recognized perhaps too that in the process of elevating the mind from laxity, that we can again overdo that, and so the mind now is the attention is more agitated again. Slightly agitated, so it's able to kind of like at this point recognize when the kind of like alertness factor has kind of become more refined at state 6, to be able to adjust the mind to avoid both the more subtle laxity and subtle excitement.
다 준비해서 넘버 시와체와서 대가서 다 전바의 시신가 거서도 또 용수做过对吧또 전바의 시신계는 누가 천용 이제 대되겠지 천용 대되겠지 아니 와다 될 찬요 되는 다 되네 준주교 또 개발 체계 쟤네 준다들 준주교 또 개발잖아 아니 그래서 정말 참mol라 교도 때때서 본가도 제다 다 남주의 정화라고 다 고발라고 도 파 시차오냐 정화 참모다 고발 정화 참mol라 야 저 고민에서 정화 참모도 고민 노트가 빼면 뭐 용되게 요리 정화 참mol라 뒤 셈샤네 다 정화 셈 참모 정화 참모 가나 때때도 아니 공자고요 공자가 더 요다 야와 체마도 다들 내줘 봐 소소소 냠뇽고 돈에 다 지금 흉 참mol라 자 라면 맹아라 때 아니 랑게 냠뇽 정화 참mol라 조금도 정화 참mol라 이래서 저도 내가 지금 계획 제대로 열 봐. 뭐 되게 열어. 어때 저도 다 같이 좀 또 개발자 지금 참mol라 교도 때때 본강도 제대로 공부해 봐 시그래서
So then at the seventh state, known as fully pacified, here the powers of mindfulness and alertness have kind of been fully kind of developed and are kind of like in a state of equanimity, being able to maintain the attention in a state of equanimity, not veering overly towards being agitated or excited and falling into laxity. And so here you're also now moving from like coarse levels of an agitation and laxity into more subtle levels of agitation and laxity. And so it's kind of like here the qualities, the powers of alertness and mindfulness are starting to be able to detect the subtle levels of agitation and laxity. And this comes about through mostly the experience of the meditator themselves, because this is it becomes quite difficult. Actually, you can really look like genuine meditation, even though your meditation may already be infected by subtle agitation, and particularly subtle laxity, which is really one of the main obstacles to developing a meditative stabilization. So at this point, one is becoming really expert at really avoiding these particular faults.
빈백가서 안에 드니 내가 매다 준주고 떡게네 안에 지구에 술 내가 빠져 간 것이 쥐바 제외게는 제바이자 내가 총 따고 된대 지금 딱 내가 된대 지금 안에 셈레 두배 냠내차.
So it's saying that at states 5 and 6 is where the real kind of battleground with agitation and laxity take place, where there's the fault of your objective of developing meditative stabilization can be hijacked by either one of those two. By the state 7, where we talk about it being fully pacified attention, and this is facilitated as well by the power of perseverance, so that one has moved past those difficult states of agitation and laxity, and so it's somewhat more easy now to be able to spot more subtle agitation and laxity because of the power of perseverance combined with the mindfulness and alertness.
가서 셈내 계획 가서 세직도 잡았어. 다 세직도 잡았어도 당고 미발의 샤베 가라 배준 준비 제거했지. 미발의 샤사도 이거 내도에 장으로 와. 왔다 가자 그 장도 아니 지구 있게는 전에 약고 내도에 장도 왔다 가서 셈내 계획의 세직도 잡았어.
So the 8th state is referred to as single-pointed attention, and so here, though it takes a slight effort for you to be able to bring your mind to focus on the object of your attention, but once that you have your mind focused on that object, and then you can remain single-pointed on that object without any further effort.
다 셈네 구백 가서 다데 배주 개백 가서 배주 팀비 되고도 뒤에 먹어 봤잖아.
And the difference then between 8 and 9 is 9 is known as attentional balance or fixed absorption. And so here, whereas some small effort was required to get the mind focused on the object on state 8, this effort is no longer necessary at state 9. And so one naturally comes to rest on the object. Which means that one can maintain that faultless attention on the object for as long as one likes without any effort. And so, in the context of the instructions on developing this meditative stabilization, mental quiescence, there are also the 5 faults that are enumerated, and the 8 adjustments to counteract those faults that are also listed.
somebody tambo디 라디 거.
장보지 자원 예신을 내려줘. 아니 다니엘의 예배를 기록을 써줘.
기록을. 데레.
그것도 내려 숨 쉬어라다. 내려 숨 쉬어라다.
What are the 3? So again, I'm saying here of the first of the 5 faults is referred to as laziness. So I'm saying that with laziness there isn't any possibility of developing meditative concentration. And there are 3 different categories of laziness. Who can tell us what they are?
One of them is procrastination.
네. The procrastination, the 그래서 tambo디. 자원행실래. So yes, the laziness of procrastination, always putting it off.
Laziness of self-contempt.
Indeed, and somebody, the laziness of self-contempt, saying I can't do it. And the other one?
Sloth.
This I think that's combined with maybe the third one. I can't do it. This is our favourite one, actually.
Forgetfulness.
One teacher I remember said it's called the laziness of busyness.
The laziness of
Busyness.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Laziness of being attached to negative activities.
yeah.
But it's just all you need to know really is that if you're lazy, you're not going to develop meditative concentration.
중마주 하모거나 양 괜찮기도 지마체 아니 뭔가 두체봐 뭔가 두마체 왔다 지구의 중에 가라 뭔가 두체나 두마체나 네바체가 요래 야 지구 마주나 야 뭔가 두체나 야 네바체가 요래나 뭐다데 뭐 되게 그 시그널 비와 잡아도 공자도 딱딱 배주 당도 가지고 오고 요래 왔다
So these the other faults then, one is laziness, as we have said, and the second one is forgetting the instruction. When we don't know or forget the instruction, so it's very important to be very clear on the instructions. And the third is the combination of that mental agitation or excitement and the mental laxity or dullness. They are combined as one fault, but they're very, very important. And the fourth is, when mental agitation or mental laxity arises in the mind, the fault of non-application of the antidotes. We're not noticing, or we don't apply the antidotes to those faults. That's number 4. And number 5 fault is when there is no mental excitement or agitation and no mental laxity in our attention, yet we apply antidotes just the same. So this is called the over-application of antidotes. So that's the 5th fault.
다 가이나면은 다 가서 예방가들라 레로제 당마제와제 지와제 거서的당마제와제 지와제 아니 뭐바 두제와제 뭐바 두미제와제 오다 예방가티제 그와 다 뒤셰게들라 대바다 dwi바다 준주다 아니 칭장다 제바다 셰셰다 아니 두제다 두미제와제 오다 게티제
That's the 5 faults are laziness, forgetting the instruction, mental agitation and laxity, non-application of the antidotes, and over-application of the antidotes. And the counteracting forces to those are known as the 8 adjustments. And the first 4 deal with laziness. And they are faith, yearning, perseverance, and seeking the result of meditative concentration. And mental meditative, which includes like meditative, mental and physical suppleness.
What is what? What that? That and that thing is like deva. Right? Thing is like deva to get some of the one. You say Tony deva go what you say Tony deva. That deva check. And that Mundu deva you check it deva Tony deva. That is a good water. Deva check. That deva the cassette you went you were to get and do but you don't take it what things to do to buy you to one. Do but the cassette you went to get to do the young to what. 다 준비되게 제토바이나 아니 고두이네 강에도 요마이 가서 류신자의 셈신장기 대화 중에 가서 내가 좀 두고 있거든. 당보다 얘도 말데 이네요. 그 가서래 즉 표상 숙청보 제점이지나 그 예반이 두고 와. 어떨 때는 거기 가서다 레라도 두고 요마다 류신자의 셈신장기 대화 중에 강에서 용들 그좀 제가 돈은 예반이 두지. 아니 딜라 때는 가려용 그랬으나 레로도 매바 차투에 레로도 마차투에 아니 되나 아따 레로 매바 차도 다 당화 제바들라 아니 그 땡에서 근데 두고 되게 당화 되게 점박을 심네 당화 되게 예도 맞체 점박체 다 정화 중마 중데 세생의 자라 맞이는 예도고 매자 아니 세생 생들 거 같아 그렇다 다 가서데 진거 중화이나 니뭐 두 제바 두 맞이는 예바쳐도 두 제고 두 제바쳐. 나 지금 먼저와 이바이나 야 두 제는 예바쳐도 두 맞지 맞죠. 왔다 거기 이랬어 고도.
So these 4 are combined in order to counteract laziness. And so faith here in the first adjustment really is faith in the whole concept of meditative concentration, that you have a belief in the validity and the necessity of developing meditative concentration. And that faith then feeds into the second, which is a yearning. You have this strong aspiration, this yearning to actually set out to develop it. And that in turn feeds the third of the adjustments here, which is the perseverance. That both faith and yearning guarantee that you will put in the effort, that you will overcome any laziness and persevere to be able to gain. And what are you going to gain? That's the 4th. And the 4th adjustment is then being able to kind of see that result and have an appreciation for what is going to be achieved, the physical and mental pliancy or suppleness that comes as the result of meditative concentration. So it's the combination of these 4, and they work like that consecutively to counteract laziness. What counteracts the second fault, which is forgetting the instruction, is simply remembering, which is the factor of mindfulness. And what overcomes the third faults of mental agitation and laxity is the factor of alertness that we saw as we were going through the states, and the problem with non-application of the antidotes is fixed or adjusted by the readjustment of our mindset to apply the antidotes. And the fifth fault, the over-application of antidotes, is then counteracted and fixed by equanimity, the non-adjustment when adjustment is not needed. And so, with knowledge of these 5 faults and the 8 adjustments, we can also see how they fit into the 9 different states that need to be attained, and how then knowledge of that will facilitate the establishment or the accomplishment of those 9 states. And it said too that there are 6 powers that we had that were referred to that also facilitate our cultivation of meditative stabilization. And so these are these particular details are extensively explained in the different texts like the Sutta Lamkara and the Uta Namchen. I don't know the English. They have the Sanskrit Madhya Yanta, Kanta, and then of course the stages of meditation by Kamala Shila, and in his Jerimbuche Lama Tsongkhapa's Lam Rim Chemo. So sorry. So I've gone a little bit over time perhaps, but I wanted to kind of roughly go through the actual process of meditative concentration like this. But thank you, we'll leave it there for today. So we won't have any teachings for a month, a little bit more perhaps. And so that gives you now that time to meditate. So yeah, so I expect when we start again, when you come back next time, you will be at maybe state 5 or 6 perhaps. I'm only joking. So Noel is going on holidays?
Yeah. messenger so chiro ta de ne so de ko len ke so che ta de ne ngara ran ke ta no go ro cha ne
So again, is saying thank you very much to the interpreter, because again, there's like saying I've myself no realizations, not much knowledge, but I'm like a messenger of the teachings, and so my words can't be heard unless the interpreter says them. So thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody actually for your participation in these teachings over the year. Those who have come a great distance, like from Bendigo. People have come from Bendigo, but also from all around Melbourne. You know, it's like I do certainly appreciate that. You know, you have your work throughout the week, and then you have your free time on Sunday. And some of you have obligations to, you know, family members and relatives and so on. You're not all, you know, monks and nuns, that you have a lay life to lead, but you choose to come here and spend the time here. And I think it's wonderful to have this ability or chance to collect some good merit for us together, and it's really important. So I thank you very, very much for coming.
Could I take this opportunity on behalf of us to thank you very much for the teachings this year. I know we all find it very beneficial and we really appreciate our time here. So thank you so much for the teachings that you give, and thank you, Noel, for making it possible for us to access them. Your hard work's very much appreciated, particularly over late. You've had an awful lot on your plate. You've been working, studying, doing the translations. We really appreciate all the effort you've put in, and we wish you and Sylvina a very happy holiday.
That's what I think. I took some
Yeah, that the center to national church television.
Oh,
yeah, center through. Yeah, thank you much. Good heavy.
Like the old man.
Please don't change Indian 500 and 1,000. 어때 다 동면선에 그게 맞다. 그냥 원래는 돈에 대표도 로버처럼 토지 체스. 시행 문제다 기주 배절라자 제 직전에 이거 말이 군조.
독사.
토지 체.
탁자.
그래서 그거 취해. 진짜 빼야 못 줬어. 나라서 이제 나라에 배 가고 있지. 그거 달자. 그 지금 빨리에서 이렇게 매버리.
That's
돈 색깔이 체스. 그냥 대표도 이거 말이야. What's thank you. Yeah. And that more just that I tell you. That was a second new Sanjay Kumatoya. And Janju language. And because of Janju language was in the past, Sanjay from take it. You would put it in. That can't let them watch it. Sanjay South to a photo. Competition. What are the legend of the tribute that the person said was a chaos of the studio. He was just something Sanjay Kumatoya to the 디테일에서는 자주 language 받다고 그냥 양수 랑네 유도 산제 고바는 뭐지 톱이죠. 어디랬지? 근데 다가는 시기다. 지금까지 된지 기본의 유리들이 고지죠. 또그 콘텐츠 다가는 전 정보를 나눠라다. 최고 명예 예매를 맞고 심지어는 그냥 톱이도 소박을 했는데 안다다. 가서다 람리하고 줘야다. 소득 대반의 용토에. 어느 정보를 영어로 같이 지마다. 중세 김나지는 최세계가 원료다 같은 제는 지면람의 특징 제도에 아니 코인 양자 집어 되게 아니 제거다 코인 양자 집어 되게 방다 숙체하고 뭐 요거 줘야 돼 나서 미 되게 마셔서 나서 잠을 내는 미가 그렇게는 축구시도 똑바야 볼게 난 자주 돼서 봐 어떻게 좀 모아지를 쳤어.
So we make our dedication of the merit that we have accumulated here through our, brief study of the graduated path teachings, and how fortunate to be able to have this opportunity, to actually really study a text which is the essence and the summary of all the teachings of the Buddha. We're so fortunate to have that. So we dedicate all the virtue of that so that we may be able to attain the state of enlightenment as quickly as possible, to be able to benefit all sentient beings. We make the dedication of this merit also for the good health of all holy beings. May they lead long, long lives, and may all their holy wishes be fulfilled. And indeed, in relation to all the organizations out there who are, whether in the name of religion or not, that are out, whose purpose is to be of benefit to other sentient beings, may they thrive, and may their objectives be fulfilled as well. And so we dedicate also towards the eradication of conflict in the world, be it domestic violence or violence that is of an international nature, and that we dedicate also for the protection and preservation of the environment, and for the regeneration of environments that have been degenerated. which is primarily really due to human desires, you know, and the greed and so on, and that people may really cultivate a sense of satisfaction with what they have, and we dedicate for the appropriate rainfall and so on at the right time. We include in our dedication too, of course, you know, that all of the work that has gone into establishing our modest centre here, and that you know, it's after all something that we have now that has arisen from nothing, and so that's certainly something that we can find it's really quite significant. And in thinking on that, you know, we bear in mind all the people who have worked to directly bring this about, who have supported in the background, all those people who have taken positions of responsibility, who have really put in the hard yards to bring us to where we are now, dedicating all that virtue, and particularly in relation to relatives or acquaintances of people that we know who have passed away in recent times, and that wherever they are reborn in any of the 6 realms of existence, may they be freed from the suffering there, may they take a precious human rebirth and meet with a qualified Mahayana teacher like His Holiness, and be able to proceed along in the paths and grounds to enlightenment. We also dedicate our virtue to all those belonging to us, who we know, who are related to us, maybe who are ill or sick, who are not feeling well, and may they recover full health, and may they make the remainder of their lives very, very meaningful. We do our Lam Rim prayer. I mean, maybe we do it in Tibetan today.
Rangya Jishan Dobya Langya Dea Shuda Seve Tabya Tajya Jowa Yidya Mba Sechane Geve Deba Yirin Jyotya Deba Rinja Jodya Majaja Kabya Nyapa Gyubya Jodya Nijya Chibya Yira Gyoba Ye Pende Dede Sevara Jeprasho Seja Geve Mejo Tilene Ruwa Jandu Landia Ribaya Taja Nandia Yila Federation Geve Tewa Ringo Jonjoji Lanzan Dive Tunja Juja Geja Seja Mida Mimembu Sara Gundo Geve Mawaye Namda Landa Tewara Majuroji Kanze Tewa Chola Chuju Chuyo Zuje Dula Zuba Deyeze Tubden Nandia Tato Jode Shea Dashe Gyazo Chokwe Kyayuro Shea Gyawadi Yewe Lai Ma San Ye Dro Gyone Dro Wa Che Gyaya Ma Lu Ma De Ye Sa Lai Go kondu pewa shu Toni dawa rinpo she ma ke pa na ge gyo shi ke pa nyam pa ni pa yang toni kondu pewa shu kare rave kore shinkam de pedam de wa ma lu jong we ni Chere si wa ten ten kya so yi sha pe si te pa tu ten kyo shi ju se la me na mara ta ba la ki je zam yang lo da mi je je ji ze le bara tong ye me gu je la me chen la ba sem la ju bara sho sem je ne ba ji ne ba nyu to ne le ta jo je zhu ye ne ne ma le da do zhong wa me bara说那个就是那把的做，就是那叫把的是当年那叫那做乐动哎，是我来说呀，爸妈生家堂家爹当爹叫这你做堂家大多动啊，讲究什么干了诉说吧，爹大滚家么了。周就罗一起啊，给我滚到养大老妈的这面直接白了罗圈，啥的蓝天远的绕转，多见长见光把牛多说，你们的嘞，真的嘞，你们过样的嘞些，你这大多的嘞，工作送的这些，说对吧？今天看做正把的，对吧？你越心多塞瓦的，对这不能心多，对吧？对吧？有人那边这些。说咱就老妈那点这些说一趟，老做那点这些，马达看着那点这些说，就什么那这些说。